The action of today's manhwa begins in the magnificent sky islands that are held in weightlessness by chains, the holy land of Tianyang, one of the four great ones. Further, against the backdrop of a magnificent heavenly landscape, we hear conversations. Some guy asks his brother if he heard that the Holy Land was ruined. The answer is positive. Judging by the stories, the spiritual energy of their secret kingdom of Linxi has been depleted, and from the blessed land, the kingdom has turned into an ordinary place, so it can no longer produce elixirs. Next, we watch a guy with tied-up hair who is indignant at the fact that of all four holy lands, their level of coolness is always the lowest and they cannot survive at this rate. Another resident of the Holy Lands reports that their holy head is still at the Gigachad conference, and perhaps he can decide. Another resident says that their head is still young. He doubts him. A moment later, we are transported to the main hall of the Holy Head. The same head sits on the throne, and in front of him are two old men who probably occupy a high position. Elder Wang, with an indignant expression on his face, informs the master that the kingdom has completely lost its sanctity, and the production of elixirs is coming to naught, a little more, and they will repeat the fate of the Soviet Union. The second elder named Du adds that in addition to this, the divine peach tree also withered, and this was their calling card with which they made money. But the Lord of these holy lands clearly does not take these problems seriously. Instead, he yawns demonstratively, showing the elders that he does not care. Next, the guy gets up from his throne, which already exceeds the daily physical activity limit of the average League of Legends player. After this, we watch the wonderful young leader. He tells the elders to stop panicking now, because he has long been aware of the plight of the Holy Land. The elder continues to occupy the Omega position and panic. He reports that they have a shortage of 150,000 top-quality spiritual stones, and this is a large amount. The Holy Head reports that he has a solution. All participants in the meeting, having heard that the head has some kind of decision, immediately conclude that we are most likely talking about finding new blessed lands. The elder, who was delighted with this wonderful news, asks everyone present to come here because their Lord will right now reveal exactly how to solve the crisis. Then something unexpected happens. The Holy Head takes out the legendary Nokia from his pocket and says that the solution to their crisis is right in his hands. Our main character understands how to use this phone of legendary strength, which is why he throws it to the elders in front of him. After the phones fly straight into the hands of these old men, they are surprised and do not understand what this mysterious device of unusual origin and type is. Inspecting this mysterious brick, the elder concludes that in his hand right now is something similar to a ritual weapon of the lowest class of power. Everyone around is perplexed. They do not understand why their leader, whom they trust with the land, brought a weak magical weapon to an important meeting. Everyone is perplexed. Next, they begin to introduce us to the matter by saying that the weapons of cultivators are divided into four categories: ritual, spiritual, treasure weapons, and supreme weapons. However, the item in the hands of the elderly elder at the moment was a representative of the lowest power weapon, that is, a spiritual one. Nobody understands what kind of idiotic decision of the Holy Head this is, because in order to upgrade the category of ritual weapons you need to spend a year or two, and no one will agree to give money for this brick. The second old man, realizing that his head is most likely a loser and an idiot, says that this is really funny, because by selling this garbage they will only disgrace the Holy Land. The head listens to all the dissatisfied reviews of haters. Everyone says that his decision is an absurdity that cannot be relied on, because on the market you can make money by selling either precious stones or donations in Roblox. After the dissatisfied roar of these losers who don't understand much subsides, the elder decides to ask the Holy Head if he is going to sell these things. The handsome man replies that they are right, that this is an inferior weapon, but this is an unusual low-grade ritual weapon. Then he asked everyone to look more carefully. The chapter says something that shocks the minds of these idiots. They cannot believe that this object can have an unlimited range of action and can be used for communication. The elder simply refuses to believe in this, because being the head of the creation of weapons, he cannot believe that this garbage with weak runes is capable of such amazing things. Looking at his master, the elder thinks that he is still young, and although he has become the Holy Head, what he says is simply ridiculous and frivolous. And if this guy doesn't give a reasonable explanation with his words right now, it will be a complete failure and the elders will want to remove him. This cannot be allowed. Next, a guy with the appearance of a Korean idol tells the old man that after he sees this object in action, he will believe. He tells Elder Wang to overcome 5,000 kilometers using technology. Elder Wang takes the old Nokia from our protagonist's hands and plans to use his distance-breaking technique to test the technology. After a couple of moments, the elder begins to move away from the guy, but suddenly he himself stops him in order to add something. The holy head reminds the old man that he is leaving without writing down Elder Du's number, but the leaving old man declares that he already knows him by heart. Having moved a decent distance away, this man begins to read a spell with which he must move 5,000 kilometers from here. At this time, people are discussing that the elder who just left was really angry. No one understands how the young head could allow himself to mock the veteran. After some time, the old man reports that the time of 100 breaths has already passed. He asks if there is some kind of connection with Elder Wang, who should already be far away. The second owner of the mysterious communication device, or simply a telephone, replies that there is no connection, but the head asks everyone not to rush and wait. Next, the old man in a red robe worships our main character, saying that no one is perfect. He asks him to bow his head and apologize to Elder Wang when he returns. However, this old man's request is interrupted due to the fact that the phone in the man's hands begins to ring and vibrate sharply. The phone notifies this boomer with an alert that he has received a call and asks if he wants to answer. The old man is shocked that there is contact and he can answer. At this time, our main character interrupts his mewing session and, with a smile on his face, asks everyone around him if they expected this to really work. The next shot we see is how the elder, who had previously doubted, awkwardly brings the phone to his ear and asks if he can hear him. The second elder in a red robe is actually on the mountains communicating with this old man. He confirms that his colleague can be heard and reports that he is in the Hengjian Mountains. The old man, holding the phone in his hands in surprise, simply cannot believe it. Because these mountains are 5,000 kilometers from here, everyone else is also in shock. The pensioner understands that even by selling this device for 30 stones you can get rich. Then our main character tells the elder that 5,000 kilometers is too little. He demands that he move further. Next, a man in a blue robe with the ability to move declares that he is on the island of the Phoenix. Everyone is in shock because he is located 25,000 kilometers from here. Making another teleportation, the traveler finds himself in the nest of an immortal dragon, which is located 50,000 kilometers away. This elder could not be stopped. After a few moments, he teleports even further and continues to ask the other elder whether he can be heard or not. No one can believe what they heard, because the great city of power in which the phone tester is located 250,000 kilometers from the Holy Lands. Everyone around is so surprised that with the help of this device, you can communicate at a distance of 250,000 kilometers, that they are all eager to ask the elder to bring something. Next, our main character, placing his hands at his sides, asks his people if they understood that all this time he had not embellished anything for them. Meanwhile, the elder is called his wisest Sigma. These elders are trying to realize the full benefits of this device, because with its help, people will be able to communicate with each other from different lands. In turn, they will be able to send people directly to the kingdom from the Holy Land. Looking around this group of old people who did not pay attention to this brick, he realizes that now everyone sees this as a treasure. He is sure that they have never seen anything like it. The elders and everyone around immediately changed their shoes. Their mood immediately changed. The old man, raising his fist, began to praise the gentleman whom he had previously doubted. Next, we watch as this crowd of ignoramuses who previously doubted our main character worships him, calling him the smartest. They understand that they now have nothing to worry about. A few moments later, our main character sits down on his Giga Chad throne and offers to solve all their financial problems with the help of this thing. He asks if there are any objections. Everyone around agrees with the proposal of the Holy Head, but suddenly a seal is formed in the middle of the room, which means that the first tester of the mobile phone is returning. After a couple of moments, the seal and teleport magic work, and an elder in a blue robe appears out of nowhere. Others rejoice that he has finally returned. After this creepy old man returns, he hunches over and looks at our main character. Holding a phone in his hands, the situation around becomes tense. But what happens next clearly surprises everyone around, because the arrogant grandfather worships the master and apologizes, asking for forgiveness for his impudence. This was very unusual for Wang Changchun, because his character was particularly hot-tempered. And now, despite his pride, he decided to apologize to the master. The young master gets up from his throne and approaches the old man, who apologizes. Having reached him, he asks him why such gestures, because each of them is worried about the Holy Land. The Holy Head turns out to be very good-natured. He says that many elders took care of him at one time, and Elder Wang once gave him a supreme weapon that saved his life more than once. Our main character continues to list all the exploits of his elders. One of them helped him practice a technique he learned from the outside world, and the other taught him to play Fortnite. Looking at Elder Du, our main character paid special attention. Although he could not single out a separate event, he said that he should not be so polite. Elder Wang continues to ask the master for forgiveness for his impudence, while the young guy says that if he wants to say something, let him say it. Further, Elder Wang, taking out his phone, reports that he does not understand at all how this thing works, because it consists of low-grade iron. Moreover, it is an alloy. Having heard more different questions, our main character understands that he needs to talk about his knowledge from a past life. Because our main character is not from this world, he came from planet Earth. The course of events is interrupted, and we are transported 37 years ago when our main character was barely born. And it was these 37 years of wandering that brought him to the heavenly lands. At the age of 17, our protagonist's teacher brought him to the Holy Land of Tianyang, at which time we watch the guy fly astride a sword. Our main character, relying only on his own strength and his excellent skills, victoriously moved forward through various tests. And in just 20 years of his work with incredible talents, our main character reached the birth of a soul that gave him a ton of buffs. It was at this moment in his life that he ascended the throne. Moving forward to the present, we watch as our main character, using additional virtual reality, demonstrates the principle of a telephone and reports that this is an analog from his past life. Returning to the instructions, we hear that the essence of how this device works lies in the thing in the middle called the base station. But the old people also don't know what it is. A handsome man with a model appearance explains that the device itself is only a key for connecting to the base station. In fact, it has little functionality, while the station does all the work. If there are two devices in one station, one sends a request to communicate with the owner of the second. The station, as a transmitter, accepts the request and connects the devices with each other. However, despite the detailed explanation, this crowd of old people still did not understand a single drop of what our main character explained on his fingers. This only sowed questions. Next, the elder says that for these things there is an altar that connects them to each other, and the reason why you can communicate is in this altar. The guy praises the old man. The old man is surprised that this altar covers a huge territory, because even when passing through secret kingdoms, he connects these things with each other. He asks, what kind of wonderful altar is this? Then everyone around has one question. Where did our main character get this powerful altar, which is capable of covering simply colossal territories with its power? Hearing that all these old men are asking the same question, our main character replies that the answer is the sacred treatise of Tianyang. After this answer, active discussions begin, because the named treatise is the strongest artifact of the great ancestors of the Holy Land of Tianyang. Everyone was shocked that this served as a station for the master. Having heard the reasoning of his people, the holy head noted that their arguments were correct, and the sacred path was indeed included in the base station that connected mobile phones. The guy added that since he ascended the throne, he has constantly studied this treatise. He discovered that this treatise is not a powerful weapon that is capable of attacking. But despite this, the sacred treatise simply had unlimited potential. In its time, Tianyang relied on the knowledge that was stored precisely in the sacred treatise. Even if their strength was small, their knowledge helped them improve with the help of the flow of knowledge contained in the treatise. Thinking about the complex story, the old people concluded that their master used knowledge from the sacred treatise to create a communication device. They did not understand what was on the young man's mind. The sacred treatise or Roblox lore really has a knowledge base and power. In the past life of our main character, he would definitely have been a supercomputer with infinite numerical power. Sitting on his throne, the holy head stated that from now on, with the help of the station, they can monopolize the communication system among mortals and charge fees for communication. And in the future, they plan to create the internet. The head of the Holy Land stated that by creating another network called the internet, the revenue would be much more than a couple of spiritual stones. They would have a whole huge business empire. However, despite the discovery of incredible technologies that made it possible to earn millions, the old people continued to harp on the fact that the plight of the Holy Land was really serious. The holy head again repeated that his people were worrying in vain, because they would definitely not have problems. Artifacts absorb spiritual energy from the void, and devices can work all day long. At this time, the giant of thought and just a gigachad thought that even if we take all the numerical power of the servers and computers of the Earth from the previous Earth, it would not amount to even 1/10 of the sacred treatise. Walking around the room, our protagonist informed his servants that they should already understand that he had decided to use the invention as a key item in the industry that would solve their financial difficulties. After this cool speech, the morale in this room rose again. Everyone began to praise the gentleman once again, calling him the smartest and so on. Next, our protagonist turned to Elder Wang, saying that the main direction of production would be communication device tokens, then he would add engraving on the jade plate. But our main character said that one nuance is important. The iron used in the production of tokens must be processed by their craftsmen. Everyone asked what this condition was for. The smartest person in the room replied that the processed iron of their clan is charged with the energy of artifacts, which means they will not doubt the authenticity because they only need such material. Because if the material does not suit the device is useless. Then whispers began in the audience. Everyone was discussing the price at which this miracle device would be sold because they cannot sell something that only they can produce on the cheap. The elders continued to discuss a variety of theories at what price it could be sold. Some believed that this device was so cool that it could be sold for at least 10 highest stones. Hearing all these boring options, our main character bowed his head down and exhaled, because all these thoughts of his people were very outdated and made our main character exhale. Further, the holy head announced to his subordinates that they should not be so greedy because the prices they offer are too high. After all, the main goal is for everyone to use the device. However, the elder objected to the holy head, saying that there are only very poor heads around them, and if they set a very low price, they will not earn at all. The holy head asked the elders not to worry. Even though the price will be low, their profits will confidently increase and they will earn much more. Our protagonist continued by saying that their tokens can be used continuously, so the first year of services will be free, but the second will be charged. After all, only by paying will they be able to communicate further. Perhaps those who have just begun to practice their key will not be able to pay much, but the cost of the call will be affordable. Then, in the main hall, active discussions began on the words of the holy head, because their activities should not end with the sale of communication tokens, because charging money every year could make clients angry. The old man in the red robe confirmed the correctness of the words of the previous speaker, saying that when buying elixirs, scrolls, and spiritual artifacts, you pay only once, but no one has heard of charging money annually. Suddenly, they are interrupted by a third person saying that charging a fee annually is a brilliant move. He bowed to the gentleman, calling him a business genius. The bearded man continued by saying that although he previously believed that the gentleman was able to help the earth, but now he is definitely convinced of this. This communication token is a real salvation. Next, our main character, a genius from our world, slowly removed the lid from his tea and invited the elders to think carefully about his ideas. While drinking tea, the guy asked during their cultivation time whether it was possible to cultivate without using spiritual stones. After all, when the masters of their clan practice medicine, they do not need spiritual stones to create medicinal elements, and without the necessary elixirs, they are forced to waste a lot of spiritual stones. And if this is not medicine, after all, to tame spiritual pets, spiritual stones are also needed. The great masters of the clan create them with the help of defensive and offensive formations. And the functioning of the formation, just like other types of activity, requires a lot of spiritual stones. The head saint concluded by telling his subordinates that they should only wait for each cultivator to have their connection tokens, because then they will become an integral part of everyone's life. Next, the guy turned to Elder Du, saying that let those responsible for external relations begin to purchase refined iron from outside and make reserves. The elder interrupted by saying that they have their own reserves. However, our main character said that he should not contradict him, so he confirmed his order, saying that they need to buy from the outside because he has plans for their reserves. After that, our main character looked at Elder Wang and instructed him to gather all the skilled clans from all over the earth so that they could produce as much as possible in a day. Rising from the throne, the head said that everyone else needs to prepare well, because as soon as sales start, the tokens will immediately be put up on the shelves of their retail stores. The real ruler began to declare that all traders in their lands should be well trained in order to be able to competently explain all the wonderful properties of the Nokia phone. The guy then stated that the meeting was over and was about to leave, but the elders stopped him, saying that the head had not given a name to the new device. After that, our main character thought for a few moments, after which he raised his finger up and, showing brilliant resourcefulness, called the device a cell phone. He also added a second name for the device, Tanyan Mobile Phone. Everyone liked this name and no one was against it. They even asked to borrow each other's phone. The course of events is interrupted, and we move to the beautiful residence of our main character, which at this moment is illuminated by the daytime rays of the sun. While drinking his favorite Lipton tea, our main character sighs, saying that this boring conference is finally over and he can exhale. He understood that while others were spending cultivating powers, he was trying to earn money. It all seemed wrong to him. But who knows when he might become the immortal owner of the treatise. Next, our main character repeated the streamer's trick in anger and began to smash the keyboard on the table. He was already tired of the fact that he needs to earn money every day because it is more difficult than the work of a programmer. After our main character calmed down a little, he called up the system menu in which there were 3 different expensive options to increase his strength. Standing in front of this menu, the guy thought, because the first 2 options are cheaper but will still add strength to him, but it will take longer to level up after them. It was obvious that the best solution would be to take a perfect breakthrough, but 100,000 spiritual stones is about a third of the Holy Land's annual income. After these complex conclusions, which were not typical for our main character, he sat down in his chair, realizing that he should work on the system, because his only goal is to earn money. Looking at the Chinese mobile phone, the guy understood that the creation of the internet should immediately follow, by which time he would have studied all the methods of making money on the internet. Next, our main character opened a panel in front of him that displayed his current stage of awakening. Each stage was achieved through hard work. He cannot give up. And in order to break through the birth of the saint's soul, he had to secretly sell all his property, including the property of his teacher, because he has no savings at all. However, as long as our protagonist has time to practice the secret of combat, this book was the reward for breaking through to the nascent soul stage. It can be said that this is a scam system that Ye Chen used. For a perfect breakthrough, you can get a random reward. Meanwhile, our main character received this treatise while gaining a level. This book was a perfect fighting technique. It was thanks to this book that our main character could strengthen any other attacking technique. It can be called the first among all 9 secrets. Before receiving this imbued book, our main character earned too little, believing that he could only break through on his own. But everything changed after he received a book called The Secret of Combat, which allowed him to significantly increase his strength through intensive training. Meanwhile, the course of events is interrupted and we move forward 3 days. Continuing to observe the Holy Head, we see how the phone behind him begins to ring. Picking up the phone, the Holy Head hears the elder who is responsible for the production of cell phones. He informs the guy that daily production has reached 100,000 cell phones. The elder continued saying that he did the math and found out that the net profit of 1 mobile phone would be about 90 low spiritual stones. We are watching the transformation chain. The old man continued by saying that in this situation, they would receive 300,000 higher stones a year. Previously, this much could only be earned from the divine peach tree. The elder continued his report by saying that many students of the clan decided to change their specialization and began to create artifacts. He added that in a year, all the students of the clan will be engaged in production. Having heard the latest news, our main character was very surprised because the fact that all the people of the clan began to engage in creation was simply madness that was difficult to believe. Next, the Holy Head informed the elder to urgently convey to everyone else that the productivity of 10,000 pieces per day is more than enough. He repeated that there is no more need. The next moment we watch as some huge bell begins to ring very loudly. The ringing of this powerful bell is so loud that it can be heard in almost all Holy Lands. Residents begin to ask each other what happened. However, the residents quickly come to the answer by saying that if the spiritual fire bell rang 3 times in a row, it means that the Holy Head is calling all the elders. Next, the course of events once again moves to the place where the first meeting about the mobile phone was held. The Holy Head asks how the sale is going. One of the old men, bowing slightly to our main character, tells him that he has 230 stores. He also reports that they are ready to start selling at any moment. The Holy Head, after listening to this man, informs him that they will begin deliveries today, and tomorrow will begin the first day of the official sale of cell phones. Next, everyone who is in this room bows to our main character and obeys him. They declare that everything will be done as he said. The Holy Land of Tanyang has never produced anything unique, but now, thanks to the wisdom of the head of the Gig Chad, they have their own branded product. After the decline of the divine peach tree, they stopped supplying its leaves to the outside world, and the number of their customers fell sharply. But now, according to one of the elders, they will be able to sell about 300,000 communication devices in a day. He is even going to tell his friends about this so that they also buy it for themselves. At this moment, the head was thinking that when a new product appears, it is necessary for news about it to spread throughout the area, because in an instant the phone will not be able to gain popularity. First, they need to launch full-fledged production and occupy as many territories as possible, and later have sales throughout the entire land. The plans of our main character, who had the IQ of Magnus Carlsen, were, after success, to gather all the students and elders to put on a show. The course of events is interrupted again, and we are transported to the great city of Power, which is one of the 10 best immortal cities on this earth. Meanwhile, residents are discussing rumors that the Holy Lands of Tianyang are experiencing problems with finances and production. They also take into account that prices there have risen by as much as 30%. Everyone around is very sad because the elixirs from those lands, and especially their Red Bull, were irreplaceable. And now all that remains is to go to other shops and drink Monster. Suddenly, an old man appears in our field of vision. Accompanied by two beautiful girls, the residents immediately notice that he is suspiciously joyful. Next, this merchant takes out something special and states that the supply of leaves and elixirs has unfortunately not yet resumed, but he has in his hands the innovation of their holy master. While the man was demonstrating the phone, everyone was discussing the rumor that the Holy Head himself created this product. They continued to talk about what they say is that the Holy Master is talented. After the merchant heard these conversations, he approached the crowd and confirmed their assumptions by saying that the Holy Lord had indeed created this weak ritual weapon with incredible properties. The merchant continued by saying that as long as they have a Tangyang mobile phone, they can freely communicate with other cultivators despite the distance between you. However, after the guy named a price that exceeded a Big Mac, everyone turned around and left, saying that raising such a price for a ritual weapon was simply nonsense. Instead of creating a stir, this product only sowed rumors that the Holy Land was so impoverished that they were selling some low-grade products in an attempt to earn at least something. Despite all the expectations, the sale of mobile phones was very meager because no one began to pay attention to them. No one even checked what they were capable of. Then the course of events stops and we are transported back to the meeting room. Everyone reports to our main character that on the first day of sales only 6,000 devices were sold. No one could understand what was going on. However, the Giga Chad, unlike this bunch of alarmists, was absolutely calm. He asked the elders why they were so nervous because 6,000 sales is an excellent result for the first day. The old man with his jaw dropped was surprised because he did not understand why their magnificent device for such a low price was expected to be such a devastating failure on the first day of sales. The main character tried to calm the crowd of alarmists by saying that people needed time for them to believe in this product because even strong elders doubted it at first. The elders asked what they should do. The Giga Chad told them that nothing was needed because it is normal when a product is not popular at the initial stage of sales, no matter how excellent it is. Next, the guy with long hair stood up from his throne and told the elders not to worry and continue to support the production of 100,000 mobile phones a day because the cost is low. The Holy Head instructed the elder to contact the large pavilions and find out the reasons for the low sales. The elder carried out the order and asked everything as he was ordered. Then from the mobile phone came screams that sales volumes were falling just like Bitcoin. This week sales fell from 6,000 to 4, and cultivators everywhere were saying that the Holy Land of Tianyang had gone crazy. The elder who heard all this slander against their holy land was simply furious. Flames were coming from his eyes. He did not understand how commoners dare to slander the Holy Land. Another old man told our main character that everyone is unhappy with their device. Now those who initially wanted to check them will most likely be afraid because of the public. This crazy guy continued to surprise everyone with his calmness. He was either very stupid or very smart. He said that everyone would understand that they were mistaken, and when they realized they would crowd in lines. In the following days, cell phone sales dropped to a pitiful 2,000 a day, and the merchant stood on the empty street waving his arms because no one was there. After some time, the course of events is interrupted, and we move to the Gu clan, which is located in the west of Yanzhou. There is also a crisis within this clan, because they will soon run out of underground streams of hidden fire, and the income of their main product has fallen by 30%, which makes everyone panic. In the next frame, we watch the head of the Gu Sea Otter, named Gu Lingyun. He asks the elders what they can offer to prevent the depletion of underground streams. One of the elders, coming out of the crowd, reports that sales of explosive weapons made from rainflowers are going well. Increasing their supply can replace lost income. The lady replies that production is difficult. The elder who stands in front offers his mistress to raise the price of their ritual weapon to 1 medium spiritual stone. Others immediately call it a scam. However, another part of the crowd adds that the Holy Land of Tianyang is doing this. Why can't they do the same? And these Tianyang mobile phones are completely absurd. Guling Yun, having heard these conversations, immediately orders them to close their mouths, because they have no right to laugh at the head of the Holy Land. And if outsiders hear about this, they will have problems and their clan will be destroyed. Immediately after the cool queen shuts the mouths of her ignorant subordinates, everyone looks at the floor and is afraid to drop another inappropriate word. Next, Guling Yun reports that the meeting is over for today, and they can return to their place and think about how to counter the depletion of underground streams. After the mistress of this clan completes the conference, she gets up from her throne and moves somewhere, but suddenly her maid approaches her. Gulingyun stops in front of her and folds her hands in front of her. She asks if there is any news about where Sun Er was. The maid replies that she went hunting, but there was no more news. However, Mrs. Gulingyun is not worried about this at all, because she has placed a mark on the missing person, so that she can easily track her position using prehistoric GPS. But after the lady uses this prehistoric GPS and sees an image or vision before the glitch, she sees nothing but ordinary rocks and ordinary sky. After she sees that the missing person is gone, she wonders why she doesn't see her. She admits the possibility that she really is in a secret kingdom. However, this woman is somewhat similar to our main character, who also knows how to remain calm. She takes out a jade bead that allows you to detect a person and contact him directly. But even this jade bead does not give her any answer. She ceases to understand what is happening, because there has been no news from Zhun'er for 2 days. She wonders if the missing person is okay. However, unlike the mediocrities who stole the Tianyang mobile phone, this lady still acquired it, and she decided to try to contact the missing person using it. Taking out the phone and looking at it, she remembers that the merchants told her that its use is not limited by distance, and that communication can be made even in the secret kingdom. Looking at the phone, this girl is trying to understand how to use this mysterious device called the Tianyang mobile phone. Instead of poking the buttons, she directly addresses it. After a couple of moments, the phone itself begins to ring, and the gadget notifies the girl that the number 87897 is calling her. Whether she wants to answer, she understands that this is the number of the missing person. Seeing that the phone received a call, the girl understands that this mysterious device really works. Then she clicks on the screen to answer the call. Immediately after she puts the phone to her ear, she hears the voice of the missing girl who asks her aunt to save her because she was trapped in the Forest of Grace. A few moments later, immediately hearing the SOS signal, this woman takes off from the ground like an Iron Man and heads straight to the Forest of Grace for a rescue mission. After some time, and more specifically for review lovers, after 15 minutes we find ourselves in the Forest of Grace. A moment later we watch the same Gu Shun'er who fell into the trap. She asks a thug named Shiledian what he is doing and whether he wants a war with the Gu clan. However, this big guy, in response to these threats of war, only laughed in response, saying that there would be no war if no one had been able to detect it yet. Then this gorilla smiled, looking at the defenseless girl. This man was going to use the hostage to exchange her for techniques and weapons of the Gu clan that would help in the development of his clan. In front of us stood a guy with a very dubious appearance named Shiledian from the Chi clan. He told the hostage that when he gets everything, she will become his property. Then drool began to flow from the mouth of this thug, because he began to think about how he would make this girl a servant, or maybe even a wife into whom he would thrust his blade directly into her sheath. At that moment, the girl tried with all her might to get out of this trap, but in order to contact her aunt, even a jade bead did not help her. After all, even after this useless jade bead was broken, nothing happened, and she did not contact her aunt to tell her that she was in danger. Then the girl finally remembered that she had a Tanyan mobile phone designed by the gentleman himself. She took it out and wondered if it would work. A couple of moments later, the girl took out her phone and dialed her aunt's number 95955. The phone dialed the number and asked to wait for an answer. The girl was surprised that the device was working. Next, the girl, waiting for her aunt's answer, generated a shield that could protect her for some time. But her aunt had to hurry because she wouldn't last that long. However, after a few moments, this girl's energy shield dissipated, and a huge thug with a sock on his head was about to turn the Manhwa into a comic for adults. But this event was prevented by a huge sudden explosion that threw these losers away from the small, fragile girl who was trapped a couple of seconds ago. The initiator of this explosion was the same lady of the Gu clan. Having eliminated the two idiots, she asked Shun'er if she was okay. The girl asked not to worry about her and said that everything was fine. Meanwhile, the surviving idiots looked in surprise and fear at the woman who flew in the skies and could punish anyone with flame. No one understood how she ended up here. The girl asked the idiots if they didn't have the brains to understand that she had contacted her aunt thanks to the wonderful invention of the Holy Lord Ye Chen, which is capable of contacting another person. However, a guy with a dubious appearance as a model shouted that this was simply impossible, because a weak ritual weapon cannot be capable of such functions. Next, the guy with the iron helmet from Minecraft told his young master that they had no chance to stand against Mrs. Gu, so they needed to leave. Literally a moment later, this guy decided to turn into a toasted toaster, and to be more precise, that same Mrs. Gu helped him. The young master of the weak clan looked at how his subordinate flew in the air and fell to the ground, fried, and wondered how everything turned out this way. Then this guy, who had no idea about honor and so on, fell to his knees and begged the lady to spare him because he had been wrong all these years. The guy continued to fervently pray to this lady so that she in turn would save him his miserable life, so that he would continue to live only for the sake of his family. However, this tough woman was not at all forgiving of mistakes. She is not one to give second chances, which is why this guy should have received his punishment in the form of death. A moment later, we watch as in a matter of seconds 3 huge fireballs are sent at this loser, from which he is unlikely to be able to dodge. But this loser is incredibly lucky today, because he survives thanks to the fact that his dad named Chili Shan, who reflects the fireball, manages to help him. However, the lady is unhappy with this situation. She tells Chili Shan that his son must die today for his dirty deeds that he allowed himself today. That is why in the next frame we see how this asshole, even despite the appearance of his father to save him, still receives a powerful blow right in the chest. Then the father of this idiot, pointing his finger, asks Guling Yun what she thinks she is. She asked if she wants stink. The woman replies that she is ready to destroy their clan at any moment. After this tough woman has set her priorities and punished the bastard, and at the same time saved her niece, she calmly moves away with the previously missing girl. Next, the events move to an unremarkable street on which they are already actively discussing that the Gu clan and the Fenyan Valley clan are on the brink of war. Plus, there is a crisis. Everyone was also actively discussing the incident that we had recently observed. Everyone was discussing how the very girl who was missing managed to escape. Next, one of the girls pulls out a phone familiar to us and declares that the girl was saved with the help of it. Everyone doesn't believe it, because even if the communication pendant and jade bead are useless, this low-grade thing cannot help. However, the man with his hair tied up interrupts the argument by saying that the girl is telling the truth, so the information about the functions of the mobile phone is not at all exaggerated. And in the confrontation between the Gu clan and Fenyang, the latter had already lost in advance because the former understood how cool the mobile phone created by Mr. Ye Cheng was. Then the course of events stops and we move to that same Mr. Ye Chen, who at that moment is informed that they have sold a whole million phones and now they have mountains of stones. Lord of the Holy Lands, look at these piles of money. I'm not at all surprised because from the very beginning he knew that this would happen. On the contrary, he reports that the time has come to expand. Next, the guy says that now they need to improve subsidies for the production of mobile phones throughout the Holy Land. Hearing this, the elders fall to the floor. Yicheng explains to those far away that the demand for mobile phones is now too great, so it will not be difficult for them to modify them. And in order not to interfere with the cultivation of the clan brothers, let others modify the devices. But our main character continues to tell the elders that as long as they have pure metal, they should not be afraid that they will lose their jobs. That is why, at this stage of development of the Holy Lands, they can develop skills and enjoy the flow of money, gradually becoming richer. After all, the ultimate goal is not to make money on devices, but to create an entire communication network that will cover the whole of Yanju. But it's too early to tell people about the internet because they are not ready. Yicheng warned his elders that although the sudden changes will affect them, it is all temporary, so he will give them new tasks soon. Next, we hear how our main character is reported that the head of the Gu clan and Gu Shuer arrived to the Holy Lord to express gratitude. Our main character understands that today he heard about the conflict between the Gu clan and the valley. Perhaps he can benefit. While the elder is surprised that even in front of the beauty, the guy is thinking about benefiting the lands. A few moments later, we observe 2 girls previously familiar to us who arrive at our main character and bow to him in greeting. Next, we watch as the gigantic children of the Holy Lands approach 2 beautiful waifus and immediately ask them what wind brought them here. The woman who is the head of the clan points to her niece and introduces her to Gu Shuner. She also adds that she usually does not behave like this, but today she is suspiciously active. Next, this cool woman points to the box and explains that they came to thank them for creating mobile communication devices because they helped her save her niece. Meanwhile, our main character receives this box with both hands and thanks the woman for the pleasant gift. Next, Ye Cheng, picking up the box with the gift and placing it in front of his face, as if nothing had happened, is going to open it in order to immediately find out what its contents are. However, using his spider sense, the guy notices that judging by the expression on their faces, opening a gift right in front of their eyes, he understands that he brought his modern habits into this world. Next, the guy who couldn't overcome his curiosity asks the beautiful waifu if they can open it for him later. The woman replies that he can do it now, so he decides to take a look now. Having opened the package, our main character discovers inside just an excellent piece of pure metal, and pure metal can be used to improve Qianyang mobile phones. After seeing what he saw, Yechen closes the box and, turning to Mrs. Gu, he invites her to share the production of communication devices with her. He asks if she is interested. The beautiful Mrs. Gu, without thinking for a long time, immediately answers that she is really interested in collaborating with our main character. Yechen continues saying that in this case they need to clarify a couple of details. Madame Gu calls it a great idea. At this time, the Madame's niece realizes that they are trying to exchange secrets. Next, a scene appears in the head of this smart girl of how our main character cultivates his powers, together with her aunt right under the blanket. She blushes greatly when she thinks about it. At this time, the lady herself notices the strange behavior of her niece and asks her what's wrong with her. The girl explains herself, saying that everything is fine. She just mixed up something and thought about the wrong thing. Our main character and Mrs. Gu saw each other behind this scene and immediately came to the same decision, saying that she is still a baby. Next, our main character says that when they finish the discussion, they can resolve certain issues upon her return. At this moment, Mrs. Gu silently freezes. After some time, our main character understands that the reason for the mistress's strange behavior is his regular habits of the modern world, but they make her laugh. However, despite all the awkwardness, after a while, Lady Gu shakes hands with the Lord of the Holy Lands and tells him that she is glad to cooperate with such a giga-chad as him. After the two leave, our main character, looking after them, wonders why he wants to behave this way when he sees the head of Gu. He assumes that she reminds him of modern beauties. The course of events is interrupted, and we are transported a whole week forward. Meanwhile, we are at the top of Huike. Judging by the Bell of Souls, a meeting is taking place. In the next frame, we watch our main character spreading his hands and thanking everyone present for accepting his invitation here. Yechen continues his speech by saying that he is glad to see everyone here. Despite their busy schedules, he gathered them all because of the good sales of Tanyang cell phones. Next, some muscular bald monk interrupts Yechen, saying that he is a martial artist, and he never doubted the Holy Land, but he is not going to buy these devices. This brainless monk is followed by a whole rally, all of them as one declare that they refuse to buy the product of our protagonist. This meeting is even attended by the elders of the three great Holy Lands themselves, who until this moment continue to maintain a significant silence. However, our main character stops the onslaught of statements by saying that he accepts everyone's choice, but he gathered everyone here to ask if they want to make money. The crowd of these fools, having heard about the money, immediately shut up and ask if the young gentleman means to take them for a share in the sale of mobile phones. Our main character clarifies by saying that he offers them a job processing metal according to his technique to create spare parts for devices, and he will buy the parts for the price of 20 lower stones. Next, one of the elders asks our main character if he is really going to buy parts for 20 lower stones by selling one mobile phone for one medium stone. After this, Yechen tells everyone to look at a living example of cooperation. Madame Gu says that recently they have earned about 100,000 parts a day and received 2 million lower ones. One of the elders, whose IQ did not exceed the IQ of the average League of Legends player, asked if they would become ordinary workers who would work for them. Looking at our main character, the old man, who was haunted by smart thoughts but he was faster, says that the Holy Land of Tianyang is indeed very cunning. Meanwhile, our main character, continuing to remain calm, repeated the old man's words and said that he did not understand why he had such thoughts. Next, our main character looks at the crowd of people he has convened and shouts that he just wants everyone to earn even more spiritual stones. He asks what the problem is. Now, this crowd, which was in a bad mood towards our main character, raised their fists for him, saying that they all agree and believe in the Holy Land and are ready to work together. Our main character, looking at the enthusiastic crowd, understood that everything went perfectly according to his plan, and everyone was interested in the work, which means he got the medal. The same elder, with the intelligence of an ordinary League of Legends player, called the guy an arrogant boy. He also added that he would eat his beard and become his grandson if he succeeded. Some time passes, and this old man is informed that after expanding the production of mobile phones, they not only maintained their quality, but also added a blacklist function. Meanwhile, the total profit from our protagonist's mobile phones exceeded 16,000 supreme spiritual stones per day, which was the greatest mark. But our protagonist's plans were approaching the creation of a network similar to the internet. The main thing was to continue expanding, as well as improving the condition of the Holy Land. Next, our protagonist ordered a large number of old men to continue building Tianyang trading pavilions in different parts of the continent in order to increase their earnings. One of the elders of the Holy Lands asked the head if there will be more orders before he cuts subsidies for processing. Yechen replies that he has thought about it and asks the old man for his opinion. In the next shot, our main character is holding the 100 Flower Clan Divine Salvation bracelet in his hands, This is the supreme treasure. Next, the guy puts this treasure on his mobile phone and says that if they combine these two things, they will get an amazing device with an escape function. However, judging by the appearance of the elder in the blue robe, he asks the gentleman if anyone would agree to buy such a device at a high price. Ye-chan answers without hesitation that, of course they will buy it because people need luxury, because people by nature want to stand out more often. Then we observe the modern prototype of such a person. Next, our main character instructs an elder we already know to test the strength of the new device. We will connect a mobile phone and a storage ring and design and develop on it. Ye-chang is clearly filled with motivation. Looking into the distance, he reports that the motto of their lands is not to chase the best, but to chase the expensive, so they need to release a new device in a limited edition. After our main character released a new device of a spiritual level, demand began to exceed supply, and the device became an indicator of status, which brought in a lot of money. Suddenly, the same old man with the IQ of a Valorant player bursts into the building, pointing his finger at our main character and saying that everyone here is unscrupulous deceivers, because they stole the idea of a business. One of Ye-chan's workers tells the old man that they had no such intentions, but the holy head is not receiving guests now. They will inform him when he is ready to meet. At this moment, our main character was really busy. He continued to study the sacred treatise in order to continue to receive invaluable knowledge. Next, we watch as our main character again finds himself in front of the system menu of the Chinese GP chat. He once again observes the types of pumping. After this, he finally chooses the last option for obtaining powers, which turns out to be the most expensive and coolest in the version. A few moments later, our main character's purchase begins to take effect, as a notification from the system already congratulates our main character on his perfect breakthrough. As a reward for leveling up in the most expensive way, our main character receives a warrior's seal on his forehead, which clearly gives him something useful. Ye-chen at this moment understands that he has finally passed every step towards this goal and has received the long-awaited strong stage of soul generation, because even when faced with someone at the god level, he will not be a punching bag. The guy understands that now, in addition to the secret seal of battle, he has a secret seal of war, thanks to which it will be even more convenient for him to strengthen his body and improve his weapons. The quality of production has improved. A few moments later, the course of events is interrupted and we are transported to the street where we observe fallen leaves falling to the ground. In the next frame, we watch as Ye-chen catches one and aims at falling leaves somewhere to the side in order to throw it. Next, the guy throws this leaf into the tree trunk with such force that it breaks. Now he can fill any other objects with his power. Reaping the benefits of improvement, Ye-chen realized that this was a good buy, although the next breakthrough would definitely cost even more, but in his mind he could already build a business idea. It is thanks to high intelligence like Magnus Carlsen and incredible potential that collecting the amount of 500,000 top stones will be easy. After some time, our main character returns to his monastery, in which the elders, seeing him, are delighted with his return. Their surprise is due to the fact that they watched their holy head just break through to the middle stage of soul generation, because they were watching a heavenly vision. Ye-chen confirms that he just made a perfect breakthrough by increasing his level, but he also asked why all the elders were gathered here. What serious thing happened? One of the old men tells the holy chief that the elders from the holy land of Taishuan have arrived and threatened to declare war because the mobile bracelets are selling so well that they have lost their business. But our main character pretended as if he had not heard the threat of war. He only said that they should not stop production. They could not care about the threats, because there were more important things to do. Next, Ye-chen summoned the magic seal and said that they still need to do a lot of things, such as real-time authentication or online information transfer. As we already understood, our main character still had a lot of things to do. Meanwhile, we are moving to the holy land of Taishuan, and the course of events continues here. The ruler of these lands is terribly indignant at the response to their threats, because this impudent person simply wrote a letter about the termination of allied relations. This is just a spit in the direction of their lands. Next, we observe the head of these holy lands. He reports that as far as he knows, the supply of mobile bracelets is not large, and it has few functions, so the problem will be solved. This chapter continued by saying that they can make similar devices that imitate the appearance and lower their price. Then those who cannot afford the original will buy junk from them. Next, these two idiots, considering this idea ideal, were going to immediately launch folding mobile phones into production so that Ye-chen would quickly be left penniless. The course of events accelerates a couple of days later. The meditating old man is confident that their counterfeits will be sold out in an instant. He is also confident of riches with folding mobile phones. Further, this grandfather's meditation is interrupted by saying that during the sales period, only 8 pieces of folding mobile phones were sold. The grandfather even felt a pinch in his back from shock. Stunned by this terrifying news that shattered all dreams, the grandfather asks his subordinate how this could even happen. Meanwhile, the course of events is transferred to those already familiar to us, even our native Holy Lands in which contented laughter is heard. Once again surprised by the genius of our protagonist, the elders ask him how he knew that the fakes would not be sold. Yeshin answered because their mobile bracelet has already become a brand that has come to symbolize practicality, a kind of iPhone of the world of this Manhwa. Their branded product has become so successful that it has become able to show status and sense of style. It has become a product for the upper-class people. And people can use these devices to create an elite circle of acquaintances around themselves, because they will also avoid those who buy counterfeits. In the end, the picture was that those who have no money will not buy anything, and those who are rich will choose and buy quality. Ye-chen scoffed at what kind of smart guy thought of imitating so badly. Then all the elders who were in the room immediately after finishing the speech with a cool joke began to laugh at whose idea it was to sell counterfeits. After everyone finished laughing, Ye-chen announced that they were not called for this. They needed to add 2 new functions to Tianyan mobile phones. The essence of the first function was that mobile phones would be able to project pictures through updating, using spiritual consciousness. The second function was that our main character was able to develop a spiritual online auction, which immediately added to the list of applications. And to explain in simple words, the Holy Land of Tianyan will conduct virtual auctions of goods directly through mobile phones. In the meantime, users will be able to buy goods at any time and place. In this case, if the transaction is successful, they can pay for the purchase at any Tanyang pavilion and receive the goods purchased at auction within 3 days. Ye-shin also added that the sales volume of Tanyang mobile phones is now more than 100 million devices, which means they can create the largest auction house in all of Yangzhou. The ultimate goal of our protagonist was to monopolize the auction business throughout the great city of Yangzhou, thereby gaining unimaginable wealth. But to successfully launch a network auction, you need to select bidders and make sure that the service is functioning at all stages of sales. In addition to this, it is also necessary to link information about the owner of the mobile phone to the device and then create an activation based on spiritual consciousness, that is, Face ID. Our protagonist's Napoleonic plans were that in 3 days, they would make sure everyone in Yangzhou knew about their mobile auction. All the elders supported their master. The course of events is interrupted, and we are transported to a location that belongs to the Gu clan, which is located in the Great Yangzhou. Next, we are transported inside this huge building. We see the beautiful waifu already familiar to us, who is the niece of the great Lady Gu. All this time, the girl was looking at the mobile phone that was on the table. After a while, a notification appeared on the screen that the update process was complete. After the update that arrived on waifu's phone, she noticed that this update added a spiritual auction function, which she immediately clicked on. After that, a huge menu opened in front of her, which contained a rich assortment of treasures ranging from a divine peach to a treatise on demons. This sweet girl went to her aunt with the thought of sharing the update with her, but after she notified her aunt about the update, she was already in the know. The great and powerful Lady Gu grinned, because after the release of the spiritual auction, she realized that their clan's auction house would not last long now. Further, this woman admitted that our main character is really a genius. They shouldn't be upset because if he came up with such a sales method, it will also benefit them. The woman realized, using her feminine intelligence, that this innovation in the form of this spiritual auction would turn the whole of Yangzhou upside down. Meanwhile, we move to the valley of Jiang Cliff. We are watching a psycho who is looking for some kind of life extension pill, because as long as he can become stronger, he can take revenge on someone. However, somewhere in the east of Yangzhou, there is a real fight between 2 powerful guys. One of them flies on a damn sword, the other flies in the air. Next, the guy with the purple lightning says that now he will make a blow, in which all his strength is invested, and he will not be able to stop it, because one of them will definitely die. However, the guy who was on the flying sword flies away, offering to take a break, because he urgently needs to participate in the spiritual auction. Then we watch the scene as one of the inhabitants of the Holy Land tells another that he has devoted himself to cultivation, and says that he will not buy himself a Tangyang mobile phone, but he bought it. The guy holding the phone in his hands explains that when he saw the online auction, he just couldn't help himself. He immediately began to think these cell phones were incredible. After some time, the day of the auction begins. Some nice lady tells our main character that she is from the first generation of holy ladies of Lin Kaer. He was sent to conduct the auction. In response to this, Our main character, with a deft movement of his hand, calls on the previously familiar sacred treatise, saying that there is very little left and they can begin. Next, this lady, using telepathic powers, attracts the sacred treatise to herself, after which she opens it, receiving knowledge. The next moment we watch as she enters the stage and greets everyone at the first spiritual auction, she introduces herself and declares that she will be conducting the auction. All the residents of these holy lands had already begun to watch the opening ceremony of the auction. They watched the auction without even visiting it, which was a real fantasy for that time. Meanwhile, the auction host points to the menu with her hand and explains that they see the lots in front of them, and by touching what they need with the help of their consciousness, they can place a bid. Fierce bidding began. No one expected that the divine peach, which previously cost 10,000, would now cost 20,000 spiritual stones at the auction. After the divine peach received its final price, the presenter proceeded to the second lot, which contained a longevity pill. One of the elders was surprised because the longevity pill should have been the last lot. He asked the elder who was in charge of external affairs what he had done. However, our main character, who was picking his nose at the time, replied that the reshuffle was his initiative. The elder immediately changed his shoes, calling this a wise decision. Yichen explained his move by saying that many had prepared a bunch of spiritual stones for the longevity pill, which meant that they were unlikely to buy anything else even if they wanted to. Therefore, his solution was to put it forward so that other users could then buy something without a second thought. After the explanation was announced, the two elders began to discuss, as always, that the ideas of the chapter were truly incomprehensible, and it was truly amazing. The elders assumed that this auction would bring a lot of money. They were right, but the auction exceeded everyone's expectations because it lasted the whole day. As a result, this innovative auction, for the first time in the history of this world, brought in a whole mountain of bags of money, their amount amounting to more than 5 million supreme spiritual stones. The elder, who looked at this magical mountain consisting only of bags that were completely filled with the highest stones, asked to pinch him because he did not believe. The elder who stood next to him decided not to waste time on trifles, so he slapped him with a powerful slap on the back of the head, despite the fact that this was not asked. Next, the lady who held the auction approached our main character to report that the total amount of money earned was 5 million top stones. Showing his incredible ability to look into the distance, Ye Chen said that such sums would definitely be hunted by robbers, so he said to be careful when transporting. Next, the course of events in the Manhwa moves outside the city of Chongqing in which the auction was held. Two robbers at this moment are waiting for the moment to steal the profits. The course of events is interrupted, and we watch as a serious trinity, led by our main character, comes out from somewhere and menacingly heads forward. Their destination was one of the elders in a blue robe who was injured. The elder is surprised that the gentleman is worried about his injuries. After this trio approaches the victim, our main character asks him if he is okay. The old man replies that the gentleman should not worry, because this is his path. Our main character tells the elder that he is seriously injured, and his path as an immortal has been cut off, and even his life expectancy has been reduced. He asks why they didn't give the pill to the robbers. Then the elder began to answer the question. He replied that it was difficult to understand because his parents abandoned him as a child, and his teacher brought him to the Holy Land out of pity. Everything that this elder achieved was the merit of the Tianyang Holy Land alone. He could not allow the longevity pill to be stolen. Then the reputation of their spiritual auction would be destroyed. After listening to this dramatic story, Ye Chen thanks this hero on behalf of the Holy Land of Tianyang and promises that they will find the culprit. The grandfather adds that they were well prepared. Turning around, our main character replied that they would sort it out. In addition, because of what happened with Elder Wu, a social assistance plan for injuries would be introduced. Ye Chen explains by saying that, for example, Elder Wu will receive monthly payments until he is fully recovered, and all expenses are paid. And when a new longevity pill appears, they will immediately buy it for Elder Wu because everyone should know that the Holy Land of Tianyang is their reliable fortress. Further, our main character said that he would discuss all the details with the elders later, and now their main task is to find the scoundrel who attacked the elder. The relatively young elder announced that when they arrived at the scene of the incident, there were no traces of the bandits, and the investigation led nowhere. Having heard all the information from the elder, our main character reports that this does not mean that they cannot use a mobile phone, because if the enemy had one, they will find it. Next, Ye Chen begins to reason. He presented a map of the incident and how Elder Wu stopped there for a short time and was attacked. It remains to check whose mobile phones were nearby. Having requested information from the database, our main character finds out that during the incident there were 2 users who appeared 10 minutes before the elder arrived. After the incident, these 2 users left. But much later, the Gigachad concludes using critical thinking that they are the culprits. One of them was registered under his real name when he participated in the auction. He had an average stage of soul generation, but the name of the second is unknown. The elder approaches our main character to inform him that he will start searching, but our main character replies that he has already found the culprits, the Tianxing clan. A moment later, our main character, like a bullet, flies out with 2 more elders in order to deal with the offenders of Elder Wu. After some time, this retaliation squad flies with its extraordinary strength to the residence of the head of the Yumo clan. After the squad of retaliation for Elder Wu flies inside the residence of the head of the Yumo clan, they continue their route into foreign territory without difficulty. However, after some time, some kind of dog with wings rushes towards our main character, which is clearly protecting these lands from foreigners such as the detachment. Seeing this flying jackal who is trying to resemble a hound, our main character, without being confused, uses his Rasengan and points it at the winged jackal. Such a powerful blow that hits the saber-toothed jackal with wings leaves him no chance, tearing him apart. Next, we see in front of us a man with horns. This man is the head of the Yumo clan. Looking at the sky, he understands that this is the head of the Holy Land of Tianyang with his retinue. This head of the clan sees that this retinue is hostile, so he also takes off with the help of his ability and flies to figure out what is happening there. Further, many people also became interested in this gathering of Fortnite fans. A total of 8 people were flying in the sky. They gathered at one point. The henchman of this gentleman with horns asks him what he is going to do with them, because they are really scary. The ruler answers that perhaps their arrival is connected with their attack on the elder. Meanwhile, we, our main character and his retinue, stop mid-flight right above the Tianxing clan and look down on them, but not at all out of arrogance. Mr. Yechen understands that this time he is fighting not for himself, but for his holy and native land of Tianyang, so the battle can't be more serious. Next, our main character, with the help of his seal, which he received recently, points his hand to the side and lifts a huge boulder with the help of a power seal. Our protagonist's power seal is so powerful that he can easily lift a multi-ton boulder above his head with just the help of the seal. Everyone watching is simply shocked, because the head of the Holy Land right now just picked up and lifted a huge part of the rock, and yet he had just recently broken through the stage. It further turns out that our main character himself did not even know that he was capable of this. After lifting a boulder, he concludes that the warrior's seal can be used for an attack. Quickly thinking and drawing a chain of conclusions, our main character, with a downward movement of his hand, cosplays as Pain from Naruto and points a huge boulder directly at the enemy's holy ground. The elders who run out to this loud roar raise their heads and are surprised that right now a huge meteorite is moving towards them. They scream in panic about the barrier. Hearing the pleas for a barrier, these elders and other subordinate rulers of these lands use a seal to form a barrier seal in hopes of saving the Holy Lands. Next, we watch the scene as a multi-ton boulder rushes towards a flimsy barrier, which was sent flying by our main character. However, after this collision, something unexpected happened. Instead of a simple collision, there was a huge explosion comparable to the power of a nuclear bomb. From such a powerful explosion from an ordinary boulder thrown by Ye Chen, a huge cloud of smoke rises behind which absolutely nothing is visible. After some time, the smoke clears, and we observe the very people who, in the hope of saving the land, used their flimsy barrier. The explosion was so powerful that in addition to easily breaking through the barrier and causing colossal damage to the Holy Lands, it left the magicians barely dressed. Next, our main character descends to these ragamuffins who were just on the verge of life and death, just like Lan Zhan from the Indomitable Overlord. After they see our main character, the stunned man asks him if he somehow insulted him, because neither he nor the head of their clan had contact with his holy land. Before answering anything, our main character attacks the old liar and declares that he found out that they were responsible for the attack on his elder. Meanwhile, Elder Song, who was indeed guilty of the attack upon hearing the accusations, could no longer respond and lost consciousness from the attack. All the other inhabitants of these holy lands bared their teeth and looked at our main character. They understood that it was better for them not to mess with them. Meanwhile, the second culprit, who remained conscious, states that his technique, the legacy of his clan, allows him to hide his position and all information about him. The attacker continues to say that he was not identified even after killing the elder of the Holy Lands, but he is gagged and told not to deceive their master. After our protagonist's retinue calls him a genius for the 100th time, the attacker takes to the air and says that Ye Chen is a simple pathetic bug, not a genius. Having gained height, this semi-finished product lunges towards our main character, while swinging its fist in order to win with one blow. This jerk of the scoundrel was really very sharp, so even the elders did not have time to react in time. They only managed to scream that this loser was impudent. However, two elders immediately rushed to save our main character. One of them, armed with a spear and sword, tries to prevent the enemy's attack. A moment later, we watch as the surviving culprit plunges his burning fist straight into the spiritual shield of the elder, who rushed to protect the head. After this relatively young elder notices that his shield is coping with delaying the enemy, he takes out his dark spear in preparation for a strike. Next, this hero makes a quick strike with his dark spear directly at the enemy, who continued to rush at full speed towards our main character. After this blow, a huge cloud of smoke rises once again, which makes the Tianyang Holy Land War confused and look around in search of the enemy. The relatively young elder tells everyone to be careful because this bastard can use the same trick as when attacking the elder by hiding his aura. Next, we watch as another enemy appears on the battlefield and through a curtain of smoke tries to inflict a fiery blow on our main character. Despite the effect of surprise, our main character manages to react to the blow and make a seal in order to counterattack. A couple of moments later, we see a similar picture to the clash between Naruto and Sasuke, but this time these are two heads of different holy lands who will soon meet in battle. The blow of our protagonist turns out to be much stronger, which is why he begins to dominate in this confrontation by striking the first blow. Due to the power of our protagonist's blow, his opponent flies 10 meters away, but Ye Chen begins to rapidly close the distance. After the holy head manages to close the distance, he delivers a flurry of hand-to-hand blows with incredible speed without giving him the opportunity to respond. After completing a series of punches on this bastard, Ye Chen ends his cool series with a kick right to the chin of this loser. This blow has simply amazing power, so his opponent again goes on a date with the asphalt, creating a smoky cloud of destruction. The power of the blow is so great that in addition to hitting a hard stone, this bastard is literally slammed into the stone a couple of tens of centimeters deep. After this psycho comes to his senses with a crazy look, he says that they really were able to deceive him, because he thought that pathetic weaklings lived on their lands. However, this does not mean that he will allow anyone, much less some brat, to humiliate him. Having said this, the man, filled with rage, screams like a berserker. But this dude's cool moment ends very quickly, or to be more precise, it ends with another huge explosion with the power of a nuclear explosion. The shockwave from this explosion is so great that it makes everyone stagger. Everyone except our Giga Chad, who is watching with folded hands behind. A moment later, the guy, albeit late, remembers the rule that tough guys don't look at the explosion, so he turns away and leaves. Having moved some distance away, he pathetically soars into the air amid a discussion of his incredible strength. People below are surprised that the heads can be so strong. One of the residents, watching the flight of the holy head and his retinue, admiringly calls him Sigma, because since, in addition to revealing the culprit, he also taught him a lesson. Continuing to watch how our main character, together with his equally cool retinue, soars in the skies, the resident concludes that he is definitely stronger than everyone. On the fly, some elder asks our main character how he identified the culprit. Ye Chen replies that it was too simple, and he didn't think about it for a long time. Next, the holy head is asked when he managed to become so strong, Sakter, because he only watched him go to meditation with his mentor a couple of times, which is at the late stage of the birth of the soul. This elder continued by saying that he was even going to call all the senior elders so that they could help him, because he was the most backward student of all. Yachang responded with dignity, saying that it only took him 21 years to reach the level of the middle stage of soul generation. Now everyone around him will consider him an upstart. He asked not to be envious. Next, the elder told our main character not to be so careless, because of his actions, there will definitely be serious consequences for him. Ye Chen replied that upon returning to the Holy Land, he will retire a little, so he leaves all remaining proceedings to Elder Wu's business. After the Holy Head reaches his Holy Lands, he immediately goes to run somewhere. Apparently, he needed to check something urgently. Stopping in place, the guy called up the system menu, or the Chinese Jeopardy chat, which notified him that he could again use one of the breakthroughs to increase his strength. A moment later, our main character flies into the air, and the highest soul stones begin to swirl around him, because he again chose the ideal and most powerful but expensive breakthrough. This time, the process of increasing the level of our main character was very different. From the seal of our main character came a silhouette that represented him, and something had clearly changed. After something that came out of the seal returned back to the head of our main character, he received another achievement. This time he received the Seal of Speed as a reward. Using this speed seal, our main character could cover a distance of several tens of meters in literally an instant, as if he could run through space and time. Next, we watch a witty Easter egg on the Flash, because the hero wonders if this speed is enough for him, so that with the help of this speed, he can turn back time. Stopping and smiling, our main character realized that for the next breakthrough, he would need as many as 5 million higher soul stones. But even now, he is one of the strongest. Further, our main character, leaving somewhere in the direction, informs some master that the Holy Land now does not lack spiritual stones. He wonders when it will return. The course of events is interrupted, and we watch as one of the elders approaches Ye Chan and tells him that the Taishuan lands have just come to express their gratitude. However, after everyone found out that their leader had reached the late stage of soul generation, the topic of conversation immediately changed, and everyone began to discuss that the master had seriously strengthened. One of the elders realized that such a speed of improvement was simply an abnormal phenomenon. Suddenly he assumed that their master was an exiled immortal. Next, our main character asked the person responsible for income what the income is now. He was told that counting auctions and the sale of devices, the monthly profit is about 900,000. The elder added that this is income taking into account only the auction house, but if we add sales from mobile phones to this, then the monthly income is 1.7 million top stones. After this conversation, the meeting venue moves to the street. Ye Chen asks what the others' reaction to their auction is, if there are any negative comments on their part. The elder reports that basically everyone is happy, but dissatisfaction is caused only by the purchasing process. Although they have a lot of people, the physical pavilion is located far away. Our main character, pointing his hand to the sky, orders his subordinates to take 2 million higher stones and open another 2,000 Tanyang physical pavilions. At this point, the course of events ends, and the next chapter begins with the fact that we see in front of us the already familiar Mrs. Gu and our main character. Madame Gu allows our Gigachad to move to a later stage of soul generation, but then she asks for what reason he invited her today. Ye Chen replies that initially he just wanted to invite her, the head of the Gu clan, just to admire the flowers, but he didn't think that she would actually come in response to his invitation. These words clearly went straight to the lady's heart. She asked him to get rid of these vicissitudes because she must have been called to talk about reducing the price of mobile phones. Ye Chen admits that the clan head is indeed not that easy to talk to. He continues by saying that since the market is gradually increasing, the price will be reduced in 2 months. However, with folded hands in front of him, our main character continues to say that in the future he is going to transfer the body production department to the Gu clan, so their income will increase. Hearing this, the lady of the Gu clan's mood immediately rises. She immediately says that in this case, she wants to express her deep gratitude to him on behalf of her entire clan. However, our main character says that this is not for the sake of the Gu clan. His goal is much simpler. He just wants to establish friendly relations with Mrs. Gu. Meanwhile, our main character, holding a cup of tea, continues that he would also like her to become an online teacher for his Holy Lands. Hearing this proposal, judging by the face of the great lady of the Gu clan, she clearly has questions or she did not understand at all what our main character was talking about. The young master of the Holy Lands immediately began to explain. Pulling out his phone, he explained that this is a new feature that he added to mobile phones, live training. Ye Chen continued by saying that they would start with just 2 classes. The first would be completely free, while the second would have to be paid for, and the lady would receive 50%. The girl, delighted with the proposal, asks our main character if she can teach the first lesson. She also adds that in her opinion, the Holy Head is better suited. However, the guy, in response to this, waves his hand and says that he is quite famous, but his existence is rather an accident. So, unlike her, he has nothing to teach the people. A moment later, an imaginary image of what the lady of the Gu clan might look like as a teacher crept into our protagonist's fantasy. Ye Chen understood that in addition to the fact that she has more extensive knowledge, absolutely everyone would be attracted and enjoy a lesson from such an incomparable beauty as Madame Gu. Meanwhile, Waifu, thinking for the sake of decency, replied that she would gladly agree to our protagonist's proposal to teach online lessons. Ye Chen folded his hands in front of him and thanked the waifu, adding that after today's daily auction, he would update his mobile phones and advertise her first lesson. For convenience, he asked the lady to stay for a few days in the Holy Land of Tianyang. The woman immediately agreed, but said that in this case she should wait for the elder. However, before the girl with the incomparable appearance had time to finish her sentence, our main character immediately informed the woman that she could go to his residence. After our main character realized that he had proposed this to her too harshly, he awkwardly scratched his head and replied that it would just be more convenient for the two of them. Next, the lady of the Gu clan decided to ask our main character if he had a cultivation partner. This is the same as a partner. If anything, Ye Chong replied that he was lonely. Having heard the answer, the lady of the Gu clan said that now, if he doesn't mind, he can simply call her by the name Yun Yun. Our main character was not at all against it, but on the contrary, for it. The course of events is accelerating and moving somewhere. Meanwhile, deep night is falling and we are far from our native Holy Lands. Meanwhile, the horned man looks at his mobile phone and realizes that today's auction is completed, and then the phone notifies that the first lesson in the Heavenly Cloud class will start today. From what he saw next, this horned man's eyes pop out from the fact that the Holy Land of Tianyang really invited Gu Yunyun, but only because of this beauty he will have to listen. Meanwhile, our main character explains to the beauty the interface that she needs to control in order to carry out classes comfortably. He explains to her where everything is. Next, our main character, having explained all the basics to the woman, moves away, saying that they will begin the official lecture in 5 minutes. He also adds that she will conduct the first lesson of the Heavenly Cloud class. Meanwhile, the woman who remains alone with the screen is surprised at the number of participants because more and more people are connecting every second. This system is simply perfect because regardless of their position, anyone can gain knowledge, no matter whether it is the strategy of the Holy Master. But our Ye Chen is the wisest person in her opinion. Meanwhile, that very first lesson begins, and Gu Yunyun announces that in today's lesson, she will give everyone basic knowledge about creating weapons and the importance of certain equipment. Even the elders who were clearly discussing something important at this moment are interrupted to look at the broadcast, which is now being watched by 200 million viewers. Our main character, watching the stream, understands that the impulse is good. Then he just needs to increase the salaries of workers in the pavilion 3 times. He was going to increase profits due to this. Ye Chen further said that most likely there will be too much work in the pavilions, because there will be a lot of cultivators coming there who need to be serviced. A few moments later, we observe a huge line in the pavilion who came to pay for Teacher Gu's online lessons. Everyone was delighted with the training. Everyone was shocked that so many people would come, because they thought that the weaker ones would not want to spend money. And besides, they were increasing salaries 3 times. Everyone continued to work. Meanwhile, the horned man we knew earlier was also in this place. He was surprised by the large number of people, because he could not believe that low-level cultivators were willing to spend money. Next, this horned guy decided that if he was unable to attend Teacher Gu's lectures, he would become a teacher himself. But the checks failed him. After some time, we watch as our main character asks the 5 elders if they have chosen a new lecturer. The elders bow and answer that the choice has been made. The elders report that 6 lecturers have been found on Introduction to Alchemy, Talismans, Formations, Taming Animals, Planting, as well as key points of cultivation. The elder told Ye Chen that more than 200 million people attend paid classes because of the head of the Gu clan. No one doubts their effectiveness. After the holy head heard all the necessary news, he leaves into the distance. Even the elders begin to discuss whether their master has fallen in love with the head of Gu. Next, our holy head goes to the real star of his program. He approaches Yun Yun and applauds her, saying that she has brought great benefit to everyone with her studies. The holy head informs the first teacher of the online school that there were a total of 208 million people on the broadcast, and most of them are going to buy a second lesson. The modest lady of the Gu clan informs the holy head that if not for his support, there would be fewer people, but the head says that 50% of it is as they agreed. Flattered by the sweet behavior of our protagonist, Lady Gu informs him that they can return to the land of Gu together, where they can admire the beautiful sunset scenery. However, our main character is surprised by such a rapid development of events. He politely refuses the offer, saying that he cannot leave the lands without control of the projects. Our Gigachad finds a compromise by telling Yun Yun that if she waits 3 more days in his domain, then after waiting they can, as she said, go to her clan. Suddenly, we watch someone running as fast as they can into the room in which our main character is located, along with the lady of the Gu clan. A few moments later, one of the elders of our protagonist finds himself inside the room. Holding a phone in his hands, he brings bad news. But seeing his master and the beautiful waifu from the Gu clan together, the old man immediately slows down the pace and, leaving to the side, informs the head that he will talk to him later. However, our main character shouts to call his elder back to come here, so that he can share the news he brings. After one of the elders of our main character returns, with all his might he places a letter on the table that says about someone's arrival. Then the course of events is interrupted, and we move to some body of water where these two are fishing. Our main character is fishing with a smile on his face, and the woman is clearly thinking about something. Meanwhile, these two sense someone's presence. Most likely this premonition is associated with the strong aura of the person coming here. The woman who is the lady of the Gu clan immediately gets up and tells our main character that the fish they were waiting for is already on the way. Sigma continues to fish. The beautiful waifu Yunyun looks at the man in a red robe who is walking in their direction. The girl says that the arrival of a distinguished guest really made her day. Meanwhile, a suspicious guy summons some strange yellow magic into his hand and reports that he came to the merchant with letters to discuss this issue. Further, this man, continuing his movement towards our main character, with the help of his powers, sends various legendary and rare objects into flight. Some of them do not even exist anymore. Meanwhile, Mrs. Yunyun welcomes the mysterious guest and informs him that she has nothing to do with Taoism because she just wants to follow the immortal path. This mysterious man continues to move as if nothing had happened and use a variety of spells. However, the people around do not take this eccentric seriously. They are happy that their holy master was not guilty of anything. So compared to the Holy Land, the ancient race is not a hindrance. Next, this eccentric lunges not with a weapon, but with his index finger pointing it at our main character. I asks why the hell he is here. The guy answers wittily. After this, our main character takes a victory stance and reports that when he was still a son of heaven, he was at a conference on Taoism in Dajiaozhou. He defeated this eccentric. That's why this guy couldn't accept defeat and used his Yuan Ying to slow down our protagonist, but he was defeated by himself. Our main character did not expect to see this man here, but he also did not expect to see his teacher here, who was simply a gigachad of this world. However, this was all just a memory in which our protagonist teacher intervened in their confrontation and easily defeated this loser. Due to the fact that our main character remembered what happened, he also now remembered that he has a plan for what to do now. Next, our main character takes out a ring. He hands it to Gu Yunyun and tells her that he made this ring by hand from a 7-color stone. He asked the girl if she liked it. Everyone else was watching the scene as the head of the Holy Lands and, by proxy, simply handed the beautiful waifu a ring. There was a romantic atmosphere around. Next, our main character gently takes Lady Gu's hand and tells her that being friends with ancient Taoism is wrong, so she must pay a certain price. Apparently, our main character further invites this stunning waifu to become his cultivation partner or his partner in fights under the covers. After receiving a positive response to the proposal of our protagonist, he, in turn, gently puts a homemade ring on the gentle hand of Mrs. Gu. At this time, a mysterious mustachioed man who just suddenly appeared in the manhwa just watching what was happening in rage, he calls all men and women dogs. After a few seconds, this grandfather simply refuses to stand and silently observe. After a couple of seconds, he makes a quick attack towards the couple in love with each other. However, by this moment, our main character has become very strong because during the course of the manhwa, he acquired 2-level increases. He is much stronger than before. After this, our main character uses a huge purple hand as protection, and it works just fine because this giant hand absorbs all the blows of the weirdo. After the attack of this eccentric was successfully repelled, our main character jumps, gaining an unimaginable height, after which he hits the eccentric with a deadly ray. The strange old man does not have time to do anything. After the effect of the beam ends, we watch as the eccentric who stole the beam lies on the ground. Meanwhile, many elders of this bastard join the battle and are ready to tear anyone apart for their holy eccentric master. However, our protagonist continues to use his high-speed purple hand technique, so he begins to slap these losers with unimaginable force. Literally a few moments later, our main character calmly deals with a crowd of losers who will attack him. Only the eccentric remains on the ground. The rest are fast asleep. After the head of the Holy Lands calmly deals with this crowd of losers, he goes into the arms of his new waifu. He tells her that he used a complex method to protect her. Meanwhile, the eccentric looks at how these two seem to behave this way on purpose. He begins to shout that there is no regret on the field, and the girl hurts him with her actions. Next, our main character breaks away from his beloved waifu, after which he turns to the warg and forms a huge purple hand in the sky that is capable of swatting the eccentric like a fly. Our main character, using his high intelligence, says that everyone around him saw how this eccentric threatened him and forced him to make another move in self-defense. The mad eccentric, throwing his hands in the air, asks our main character what kind of compensation he wants to receive. But the guy says that looking at him, it's difficult to ask for something. Hearing an obvious insult, this eccentric throws some kind of thing at our main character, but our gigachad, without much difficulty, without taking his eyes off the enemy, fights it off. Meanwhile, the guy with the tasteless mustache looks at the guy and doesn't understand why he repelled his attack so easily. He begins to understand what position he is in. Then crystals appear around our main character. He tells the eccentric that the business he created brings him more than $100,000 a day. I don't know what this is for. This eccentric still won't calm down. He uses his extended inventory ability and throws some different things at our main character, but Sigma doesn't care. As one would expect, the attack of this eccentric does not bear any fruit. Having failed, he is carried away by his own elders like a shamefully beaten dog. Then some sheer brutality begins. The beaten dog looks into the sky and sees some kind of Zeus there. Looking at him, the eccentric asks that they will hold out for some time. Looking into the sky, our main character concludes that this is the ancestor of the Valley of Burning Rocks. Everyone is surprised at what kind of kingdom of transformation he has achieved. The beaten eccentric rather folded his hands and said that he was doing all this in order to avenge the ancient clan, because at the beginning of the battle between the length of the flaming chip and the ancient tribe, Gu Yun killed the Lord of the Valley. Next, some budget Zeus descended to Earth pathetically saying that this time everything will be different, and the ancient clan is about to fall at his feet. Meanwhile, our main character silently watched what was happening. Meanwhile, Waifu turned to one of the elders, telling them to open the mountain gate. The distraught Zeus at this time began to use his magic, which was very unobviously connected with some kind of yellow lightning. A battle was planned. Then this grandfather, who knew how to fly in the clouds, made only one wave of his hand, launching a powerful attack which was enough to deal with a great detachment of mountain guards. After carrying out the attack, the mad Zeus descended to Earth to tell our main character that today he came to take revenge for the burning of Iwatani. Meanwhile, it was very difficult for our main character's wife to control herself, because she, as the patriarch of an ancient family, would never run away. But our main character grabbed her hand, asking her to hold on tight. The holy head immediately diverted this waifu's attention to himself, telling her that now that he is there, she can just listen to him and trust his actions. After that, our main character stood in front of the crazy Zeus in order to accept the fight. He asked his beautiful waifu so that she would not make a mistake and just leave the battlefield right now. However, this crazy grandfather was not going to wait for these two to sort out their affairs. Instead, he summoned a huge, fiery hand and pointed it straight at our couple. But our main character easily dispelled this attack with a simple movement of his hand, thereby protecting his waifu. The reaction of the crazy grandfather at that moment was indescribable. Next, our main character prepared to counterattack his grandfather, who had clearly completely forgotten his place, after which the holy head summoned his hand. A moment later, we watched as the huge purple hand of our main character fell at great speed on the crazy grandfather to crush him like a mosquito. This grandfather was clearly unhappy with becoming an ordinary insect that would simply be crushed by the palm of his hand, so he sent a barrage of magical attacks to destroy the hand. However, this grandfather once again soiled his pants because his weak attacks were not even able to scratch this huge hand because it was too weak. A few moments later, as our main character planned, this huge purple hand simply swatted the crazy old man like a pathetic mosquito. But this crazy grandfather was also not so simple, because after a while he flew out like a champagne cork, making a hole in this purple hand. After he soared into the sky, he told our main character that he must die today, because by killing him he would destroy the entire ancient clan that is in his blood. Having gained height, this crazy grandfather sent a magic projectile straight at our main character, who at that moment stood with his waifu without moving. Apparently, at this stage of the manhwa, our main character learned the most powerful ability available to him because he again used the hand summoning technique. Further, this grandfather still faced the fate of being crushed like a pathetic beetle, because no matter how he tried to avoid it, everything repeated itself again. The push of the golden hand that belonged to our main character was so powerful that he sent this eccentric to go on several dates with asphalt of different types at once. This grandfather, tenacious as a cockroach, once again managed to survive the attack. He again prepared to attack our main character, but this time using the magic of the air of heaven and earth. However, despite the powerful spontaneous attack of the crazy grandfather, our main character was able to cope with this attack. Using a combination of various techniques, Yechen was able to take into his fist, or rather absorb, part of the elements that were sent to him. After that, he gained strength and directed two of his hands using a technique towards the crazy grandfather, called a giant hand destroying the sky. Next, this poor grandfather, even if he was crazy, was attacked by his worst enemies. This time they were larger and their number was also greater. This time the attack force of our protagonist was so powerful that he immediately realized that it was simply impossible to resist this attack. Despite the fact that the grandfather flew very far after receiving this attack, perhaps even kilometers away, our main character, with the help of a seal, still managed to catch up with him. This time the crazy grandfather did not try to attack our main character. Instead, he made a dash to the side, wondering why the head was so fast. However, Despite the fact that all the strength reserves of this grandfather were aimed at increasing speed, our main character was still able to overtake him without much difficulty. After Ye Chen got close enough to his opponent, he performed a powerful kick on the old man, extracting a stone with him. After some time, our main character found his opponent sitting on his knees. Then he fired a precise blow to the old man's forehead. After this precise blow from Muhammad Ali, this old man was forced to go to bed, perhaps forever. All the people who watched the battle were amazed at how their holy head won, and besides this, he learned to fly in the air without problems. After all the inhabitants of the Holy Lands, including the beloved waifu of our main character, saw our main character as the winner in this confrontation, we could exhale. Ye Chen, immediately after getting rid of the body of the crazy grandfather, began to look for his beloved waifu, the lady of the Gu clan. Meanwhile, Gu Yunyun was also very happy to see our main character because he was her sweetheart who had just defeated a powerful opponent. He was surprised that his waifu still calls him Holy Master, because in his opinion it's time for her to call him simpler, because now they are together. After a couple of moments, our main character returned to talking about business. As if a couple of minutes ago he was not in a serious battle, he began talking about online lessons and express delivery. Meanwhile, Mrs. Gu Yunyun, looking at our main character and the situation in general, she understood that everything was going very smoothly. When our protagonist returned to his residence, he couldn't stop thinking about all the cute things he could now do. But he needed to get down to business. Meanwhile, the elders of our holy head, already well known to us, again stood in front of him and were surprised, this time by the fact that he was able to kill a powerful enemy. However, he immediately denied that he had just defeated a man who had turned into a god. He replied that the breath of his body was comparable to the breath of his teacher. Every single one of the elders was shocked that their master continued to be modest when he defeated the most powerful being on the continent. Meanwhile, our main character was interested in opening a new business, which involved the rapid delivery of various things that solved a bunch of problems. He explained to his elder that express delivery is intended to help people who do not have time to deliver goods. While the elders in the background of our main character began to fight for the role of the person in charge of the new project, Ye Chen was discussing express delivery prices. Next, our main character asked Elder Wu how long it would take to create a new business. He was told at the earliest 6 months. Our main character was clearly dissatisfied after hearing such a huge deadline. The elder, in his defense, said that the two-way transmission matrix is very difficult to refine. However, the Holy Head said that this is not the case. The point is that he felt that these half a year would be wasted. Instead, he realized that it was necessary to launch new products. A brilliant idea came to our main character. He realized that his new goal was to participate in the creation of WhatsApp.